Now let's talk about the raid on the home of former National Security Advisor John Bolton. That would be this character.
One doesn't have to be brilliant to attempt a coup.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but, other places.
Yeah, okay. Josh, tell me about this raid. It appears that it's not just over the classified information that may or may not be in his book or the classified documents he may have sent to family members. It may also be connected to any role he played in the Russian collusion hoax.
Yeah, so first of all, Rita, I mean, what an amazing clip that was. I mean, this has been around for a few years, but John Bolton just literally saying, like, yeah, I've actually helped plan coup d'etats in other countries there. I have helped plan color revolutions there. I mean, this is basically the encapsulation. This is the personification of the neoconservative foreign policy that the entire Trump movement utterly detests and fundamentally rejects. And because John Bolton and Donald Trump simply do not see eye to eye on these issues ever since he was fired as National Security Advisor back during the first Trump term, he has been on a sustained, now basically 6-year-long bender where he basically just goes on cable news. He goes to the tabloids, the broadsheets, whoever will publish him or take his quotations, and just trashes Donald Trump from A to Z. And part of that has been a long-standing, very, very strong, I would say close to ubiquitous sneaking suspicion that John Bolton is laundering classified information that he still has retained from his time as National Security Advisor in an attempt to just besmirch and then undermine Donald Trump by any means necessary. Now, it's interesting, Rita, as the New York Post, among others, reported there actually was in the final days of the first Trump administration in 2020, potential attempt to do something similar to John Bolton at that time, to try to make sure, go into his home, see what he was doing there. Was he actually leaking? Was he not? And then the transition happened, very chaotic transition, January 6th, all that. Biden comes in, and the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI spike it. So the Biden DOJ actually spiked this planned raid, this planned investigation, just trying to cover for John Bolton for the very simple reason that he's now vehemently anti-Trump. So look, fundamentally, Rita, I will say this. I have not seen the search warrants. No American other than law enforcement, the magistrate judge, has seen the search warrant there. I feel extremely confident that there is no world in which Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and Kash Patel, the FBI Director, there is no world whatsoever ever where they would have ordered this raid unless they had the goods there. So I feel pretty confident that we're going to learn a lot more about this in the week ahead there. And I would just try to lawyer up, frankly, if I were John Bolton right now.
Yep, there's got to be accountability. And as we are fond of saying, no one is above the law. But the leftist media is painting this as sort of purely political exercise. This is the same media who couldn't detect the political persecution of Donald Trump and the lawfare that was waged against him, his family and some of his closest supporters. I want to bring to your attention this from the Washington Post, because they can see nothing but political interference. The Washington Post editorial board wrote, "It is a valid fear that the case against John Bolton is a fresh instance of the old Soviet saying, 'Show me the man and I'll show you the crime.'" Josh, what's your response to that? We literally had an Attorney General campaigning on a Get Trump ticket, but apparently a warmonger and serial leaker like John Bolton is beyond scrutiny.
Yeah, Rita, my response to the Washington Post is very simple, which is frankly just go to hell. I mean, like whoever wrote those words should be fired. I mean, literally fired at best. I mean, tarred and feathered maybe back in the day would have been a more appropriate punishment there. I mean, where the hell have you people been? I mean, as you accurately say, Tish James, the Attorney General of New York State, literally traversed the entire state of New York back in 2018, saying, if you elect me as Attorney General of your state, well, the nation's largest state, I will do whatever it takes by any means necessary to sue and to prosecute and to bankrupt Donald Trump and the Trump organization there. You know, back in English common law, we would have called this a bill of attainder, which is an illegitimate piece of legislation, or in this case, a campaign stump promise to just single out a named party and not a neutral thing there. But I mean, how about so-called special counsel Jack Smith? By the way, I call him so-called still to this day because he's actually not a legitimate special counsel. Hold that aside. You know, Merrick Garland, Jack Smith, are you kidding me right now? I mean, show me the man, I will find you the crime. Alvin Bragg in New York City, the Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen suit, this stupid attempt to try to fabricate and alter the beginning of the tolling of the statute of limitations to account for this New York State corporate bookkeeping fraudulent crap from 2016. Give me a break, Rita. These people have no leg to stand on whatsoever. It is ludicrous. It is shameful. Unfortunately, it's par for the course for the Washington Compost these days.
It is, and sadly, much of the coverage we're getting in this country follows that, because they just basically regurgitate MSNBC talking points. Now, Donald Trump did have another huge win late last week with one of the lawfare cases against him collapsing. Josh, this was, again, another absurd case from the start. It was a political hit job carried out by Letitia James and a partisan New York judge. It was a judge-only trial, no jury. And Josh, New York Appeals Court last week dismissed the $500 million civil fraud penalty. Tell me about this, because this really threatened Donald Trump's empire. It could have bankrupted him. It would have impacted his children. It was, again, on its face absurd, but he was facing this $500 million payout.
So, Rita, it's very easy to forget about all the various tentacles of the Democrat lawfare complex. So Jack Smith, the federal special counsel, had these two cases, one in Washington, D.C. for January 6th, one in Florida, that's the Mar-a-Lago classified documents. Then you had Fonnie Willis in Fulton County, Georgia. She was the local Georgia prosecutor doing a similar kind of January 6-ish related prosecution there. Then you had Alvin Bragg in New York City, who we were just talking about with Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, this stupid hush money payment thing. And then you had Tish James, the Attorney General of New York State, who filed technically a civil lawsuit, but kind of very much looks and feels like an act of prosecution there. And her basic theory of the case, if you could even call it a case, was that the Trump organization, through Donald Trump, Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., and the other executives and officers of the organization there, that they essentially kind of fibbed the numbers a little bit on their applications for bank loans in order to secure interest rates at a more favorable rate. First of all, I have news for Tish James. Literally every person I've ever spoken to who's done this has done something similar. There's apparently a pervasive practice to the point of ubiquity, and frankly, financial institutions expect it. But the more important point is this, Rita, which is that the Trump organization, whatever they were calling certain assets, whether they were subjectively appraised, one, we're talking here about investment banks like Deutsche Bank, bulge bracket investment banks. Do your own appraisal work, first of all. Second of all, more to the point, the most important point of all, they were happy to do business with the Trump organization. In fact, Deutsche Bank, the #1 financial institution intermediary that was at issue in this case there, Rita, they literally wanted to do more business with the Trump organization. There was no victim here. There was literally no victim. But that didn't stop Justice Arthur Engoron from slapping a $500 million approximately penalty there. So just completely Orwellian stuff. But by the way, this case, as a New York native, this case was not just about the Trump organization. If this penalty had stuck, Rita, that would have sent the most chilling signal imaginable to real estate, to investors, to venture capitalists. Why would you go start a business in New York State if the Attorney General can say that you are cooking the books a little bit, even though they want to give you a loan anyway, and then all of a sudden you're out $500 million. But unfortunately, with the seeming election coming very soon of Zohran Mamdani, I think New Yorkers are probably going to get it one way or the other, unfortunately.
And the value that they ascribed to Mar-a-Lago, again, absurd. I mean, from over here in Australia, I could look at similar properties that have got that sort of price, and you would not get at 1/100th of Mar-a-Lago for that price, let alone the whole thing. I mean, it was crazy. Now, we've got another company being accused of going woke, Josh, perhaps going broke. Well, if not broke, they've seen their share price plummet fairly dramatically. This is Cracker Barrel, and their share price dived over a rebrand. Tell me why this has so many people upset, and the manner in which woke is now becoming a risk factor.
So, Rita, Cracker Barrel is an iconic Southern restaurant chain here in the United States. I know this well because I live in Texas, as I said. I also went to university in North Carolina. In North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina. This is like Cracker Barrel USA. So I know a thing or two about Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is an iconic Southern restaurant there with an iconic logo that is frequented by predominantly Southern people who go for the food and also the decor. You walk into a Cracker Barrel, it's filled with all sorts of Americana and kind of hunting memorabilia and things like that. So in comes this new woke CEO, and she really is woke. I literally looked at this woman's face, and my very first reaction is, why is she not co-hosting an MSNBC show with Rachel Maddow? I mean, this woman fundamentally belongs either on MSNBC or in the Harvard Kennedy School faculty lounge. She has no business whatsoever running a business that predominantly caters to Southern Americans there. And the giveaway, Rita, is that the CEO, when she unveiled this policy to get rid of the old iconic logo and bring in this kind of neutered, watered down crap, whatever this is there. She did that announcement, not in Nashville, Tennessee, not in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, in New York City. Do you know how many Cracker Barrel restaurants are in New York City? 0. There is literally not a single Cracker Barrel restaurant in New York City there. So that gives away the whole game there. She's trying to appease just the wokerati and not her actual own customers. Unfortunately, just like Bud Light, Target, all these other companies there, she's going to learn that the customer is always right. The customers are going to make her pay for this, I think.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.